Friday morning, April 3rd, 2026. Somewhere over the mountains of southern Iran, a United States Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle is flying its combat mission. Below it, Iranian territory. Around it, hostile airspace. And then, without warning, a shoulder-fired missile locks on. The jet is hit. 2 crew members eject into the most dangerous patch of Earth on the planet, deep inside a country actively at war with the United States. What happens over the next 36 hours becomes one of the most dramatic military stories of the 21st century. A colonel hiding in a mountain crevice at 7,000 feet. Hundreds of special forces hunting for him in the dark. CIA operatives running a deception campaign inside Iran. SEAL Team 6 airdropping into enemy territory. And then, an airstrip goes silent. Aircraft are blown up on the ground, and Iran starts asking a question that the world cannot stop repeating. Was this really a rescue mission? Or was it something far more dangerous, far more covert, and far more catastrophic than Washington will ever admit? If you want to understand the story that every mainstream outlet is only telling you half of, stay right here. And if this kind of deep analysis is what you're looking for, hit subscribe and the notification bell. You won't find this breakdown anywhere else. This is day 37 of the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran. A war that started on February 28, 2026, when American and Israeli forces launched coordinated surprise strikes that killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and more than 100 others in a single day. Since then, the region has been burning. Over 2,000 Iranians killed, more than 26,000 injured, 13 American service members dead, Iran retaliating against U.S. military assets across Gulf states, missiles falling on Tel Aviv every night, and now, for the first time in this war, an American fighter jet has been shot down inside Iran. The F-15E that went down on April 3rd was from the 494th Fighter Squadron. It carried 2 crew members, the pilot and a weapons systems officer, a colonel. The aircraft was struck by an Iranian shoulder-fired missile, which defense analysts immediately called a significant tactical achievement for Iran. Trump had once said, publicly and confidently, that Iran was unable to do a thing about American aircraft operating in its airspace. That statement aged badly on April 3rd. The moment the jet went down, 2 parallel races began. Race 1. Iran trying to capture a live American prisoner of war. Tehran immediately deployed IRGC forces to cordon off the mountainous Kogaluya and Boyar Ahmad province. Iranian state media started broadcasting to the public. Citizens were offered a $60,000 reward for information leading to the capture of the missing airman. Videos quickly spread online of Iranian locals forming search parties, moving through the mountains. For Iran, capturing an American colonel alive would have been a propaganda earthquake. It would have changed the political dynamics of the war. It would have given Tehran unprecedented leverage at the negotiating table. It would have fractured the American public's support for the conflict. Race 2. The United States military trying to get him back before Iran got to him first. The pilot, the first crew member, was recovered relatively quickly in the initial hours after the crash. But the colonel, the weapons systems officer, was still out there. Spread apart from the pilot by miles, according to U.S. officials. Surrounded, reportedly, by hundreds of IRGC soldiers closing in from every direction. He was alone, injured, at altitude, in enemy territory. And he was doing something remarkable. The colonel activated his emergency beacon, then went silent. Then activated it again. The signal was intermittent. Deliberate or out of necessity, nobody outside the classified briefings knows for certain. But through that beacon, U.S. forces were tracking him. He climbed a 7,000-foot mountain ridgeline. He found a crevice in the rock. He hid. Using his mandatory SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, the colonel stayed alive, stayed hidden, and stayed off Iranian radar for more than a day and a half. At one point, he sent a short radio transmission, 3 words that would later be quoted by American officials. God is good. Meanwhile, the CIA was running a parallel operation inside Iran. Operatives spread deliberate disinformation through Iranian networks. False reports claiming both crew members had already been found, that the rescue was complete, that the search was over. The goal was simple: pull Iranian search teams away from where the colonel actually was. It bought time. Precious, critical time. On the night of April 4th into the early hours of April 5th, the United States launched the full rescue operation. The scale of it was extraordinary. 155 aircraft, dozens of helicopters, multiple MC-130J transport planes, HH-60W combat rescue helicopters, SEAL Team 6 operators airdropped into the mountains under the cover of darkness. American aircraft dropping bombs on Iranian convoys approaching the area where the colonel was hiding. Trump would later describe the operation as one of the most challenging and complex missions in the history of U.S. special operations. He said, and these are his words, that the rescue is seldom attempted because of the danger to man and equipment. The CIA had located the colonel using a special signals technology. They had also activated what intelligence doctrine calls unconventional assisted recovery, contacting Iranian civilians willing to assist American forces. local contacts on the ground, people willing to risk their lives in an active war zone. Then SEAL Team 6 moved in. What followed was a firefight, a real one. Not a quick, clean extraction in darkness. This went on for hours, in daylight. That detail matters. Special operations doctrine demands night operations for extractions this deep in hostile territory. Night gives the advantage to the technologically superior force. Darkness masks movement, masks approach, complicates enemy targeting. But this firefight happened in broad daylight. The colonel was eventually extracted. Trump announced the success just after midnight. He called it a miracle. He called it an amazing show of bravery and talent. Netanyahu immediately called Trump to congratulate him, praising what he called the perfectly executed American mission. Israel, it emerged, had also played a role. Israeli intelligence had provided support in the search. The IDF had even postponed planned strikes on Iran to avoid interfering with the rescue operation. The American colonel was safe. And then the question started. The colonel was brought out on two MC-130J aircraft waiting on the ground inside Iran. But those aircraft malfunctioned. They got stuck. The massive transport planes, sitting on an improvised airstrip in the Iranian countryside, could not take off. So the US military did something you almost never see in modern warfare. They destroyed their own aircraft on Iranian soil. Two C-130 Hercules transport planes, blown up by American forces to prevent them from falling into Iranian hands. 4 MH-6 or AH-6 Special Operations helicopters, also destroyed. 2 Black Hawk helicopters, hit and damaged during the operation, crew members aboard sustaining injuries. The official Pentagon explanation: the aircraft got stuck in sand and couldn't take off. Standard protocol is to deny the enemy any intelligence from captured hardware. So they were detonated. Iran's version is different. Iranian state TV broadcast footage of burning aircraft wreckage in Isfahan province. The IRGC released statements claiming their forces had shot down 2 C-130s and destroyed 2 Black Hawks in combat. The commander of Iran's Army Air Defense College, Brigadier General Masoud Zar, was reportedly killed during these engagements after his unit hit a U.S. aircraft with a shoulder-fired missile, the same method used to bring down the F-15E in the first place. Iran's military spokesman said the operation was completely foiled. Iran's state media called it Trump's desperate attempt to cover up a huge defeat. 2 countries, 2 radically different versions of the same event. And then, the detail that blew everything wide open. The airstrip where the destroyed American aircraft were found is located 14 miles north of a city called Shareza, in southern Isfahan province. Isfahan. That name is not incidental. Isfahan is not just a city in Iran. Isfahan is the heart of Iran's nuclear program. It is home to uranium conversion facilities. It is where Iran has processed nuclear materials for years. And according to multiple reports, it is where a significant stockpile of 60% enriched uranium is believed to be stored, some of it reportedly buried under the rubble of already bombed nuclear facilities. Here is the problem with the rescue narrative that Washington cannot fully explain. The colonel's beacon was tracked to Kogaluya and Boyar Ahmad province, southwestern Iran. That is where the F-15E came down. That is where the IRGC was searching. That is the mountainous terrain the colonel was hiding in. Isfahan is not in southwestern Iran. Isfahan is in central Iran, hundreds of kilometers away from where the F-15E was reportedly shot down. So why were American aircraft, C-130s capable of carrying 90 soldiers each, attack support assets, special operations helicopters, operating out of a forward base near Isfahan when the downed pilot was reportedly in an entirely different province? That is the question Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai asked publicly on April 6th. His exact statement? The area where the American pilot was claimed to be present in Kogaluya and Boyar Ahmad province is a long way from the area where they attempted to land their forces in central Iran. He continued, the possibility that this was a deception operation to steal enriched uranium should not be ignored at all. The theory being circulated by Iranian officials, by independent analysts, by academics at institutions including Tufts and the London School of Economics goes like this. On April 1st, just 2 days before the F-15E was shot down, U.S. media outlets had reported on a developing American plan to use special forces to seize nearly 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium from the Isfahan nuclear complex. The plan existed. It had been discussed at senior levels. The uranium is there, buried or stored, and represents both a strategic asset and a potential proliferation risk. The theory: the F-15E shootdown, whether coincidental or not, provided cover. A rescue operation gives the U.S. the legal and moral justification to put hundreds of troops, dozens of aircraft, and C-130 transports into Iranian airspace. Nobody questions a nation going to rescue its own. It is the most universally accepted military doctrine on earth. Under the cover of that rescue, the theory goes, a second covert team moved toward Isfahan, toward the uranium. Using the rescue as the distraction, the way the CIA's internal disinformation campaign used false information as a distraction. Iran says it detected this. Iran says it responded to this. Iran says that is why the aircraft near Isfahan were destroyed, why multiple Iranian military officers were killed in those engagements, and why the U.S. aircraft ended up abandoned and detonated on an airstrip in southern Isfahan, nowhere near where the colonel was actually hiding. The U.S. government has said nothing credible to explain the geographic gap. Here is what we know with certainty. The F-15E was shot down on April 3rd. Iran used a shoulder-fired missile, the same class of weapon that defined the Soviet defeat in Afghanistan. It was the first U.S. combat aircraft shot down by enemy fire since an A-10 was hit during the 2003 invasion of Iraq. A colonel spent more than 36 hours evading hundreds of Iranian soldiers in the Zagros Mountains. He survived. He was extracted. The United States lost at minimum 10 aircraft during or connected to this operation. Between the F-15E, the A-10 hit near the Strait of Hormuz, the 2 C-130s, 4 Special Operations helicopters, 2 Blackhawks, 2 MQ-9 drones, and an Israeli Hermes 900 reconnaissance drone. That is an aircraft loss figure without precedent in post-Cold War U.S. military operations. American service members were injured. The exact number remains classified. At least 3 IRGC soldiers were killed. 4 Iranian army officers, including a brigadier general, were killed by U.S. airstrikes during the operation. Trump called it a miracle. He called it an Easter miracle. Iran called it a disaster for the United States. Netanyahu hailed it as proof of American resolve. Iranian state media aired footage of burning aircraft and called it proof of American failure. Here's the thing about this war that nobody in the mainstream press will say plainly. Both sides are lying. They are doing it strategically, rationally, and with full knowledge of what they are doing. That is how modern information warfare works. The battlefield is not just mountains in Iran. It is the global news cycle. It is the perception of which side is winning. Washington needs the rescue story to be a triumph because American public support for this war is not unlimited. 13 U.S. service members are dead. The defense budget is being stretched. Interceptor stockpiles are depleting. The cost equation of this war is brutal. Tehran needs the rescue story to be a failure because Iran is being bombed daily. Its supreme leader is dead. Its nuclear facilities have been struck, and it needs its population and the broader Muslim world to believe that America is not invincible. Both narratives serve a purpose. Both narratives are being manufactured. The truth is somewhere in the geography, in the distance between Kogaluya and Isfahan, in the C-130s that flew to the wrong province to pick up a pilot from the right one, in the 4 helicopters and 2 transport aircraft that burned on an abandoned airstrip in the heart of Iran's nuclear geography. One colonel was rescued. That is true. Whether rescuing him was the only thing the United States was attempting that night, that is the question this war may never fully answer. What is certain is this: an American F-15E was shot down inside Iran. The shield has holes. The rescue cost 10 aircraft and blood on the ground. And somewhere in the mountains and airstrips of Isfahan province, the full story of what happened on April 4th and 5th, 2026, is still burning with the wreckage that America left behind.